Okay, looks like we are live. Checking on a few things, make sure they are working here. Let me check in on my webinar room. You guys are all good here. What's up? What's up? Okay, cool. Live. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here on time. Let's check our things, make sure they are working here. Let me check in on my webinar room. Looks like you guys are good too. Got a couple viewers on. What's up, guys? Welcome to tonight's training. Very excited to be here with you. If you guys could, webinar room, just give me a shout. Let me here. Thank you for being here on time. You can see my screen. PowerPoint pulled up for you there. And same for you guys watching on YouTube. You guys could just a couple viewers on. What's up, guys? Welcome to tonight's training. Very excited to be here with you. If you guys could, webinar room, just give me a shout. Let me here. Thank you for being here on time. You can see my screen. PowerPoint pulled up for you there. You guys and same for you guys watching on YouTube. You guys could just a couple viewers on. What's up, guys? Welcome to tonight's training. Very excited to be here with you. If you guys could, webinar room, give me a shout. Being here, thank you for here, man. You can see my screen. PowerPoint pulled up for you there. You guys and same for you guys watching on YouTube. You guys could just a couple viewers on. What's up, guys? Welcome to tonight's training. Very excited to be here with you. If you guys could, webinar room, give me a shout. Being here, thank you for here, man. You can see my screen. PowerPoint pulled up for you there. You guys and same for you guys watching on YouTube. You guys could just a couple viewers on. What's up, guys? Welcome to tonight's training. Very excited to be here with you. If you guys could, webinar room, give me a shout. Being here, thank you for here, man. You can see my screen. Okay, how about now? Are you guys still getting an echo? I get a few streams going, so hopefully that'll shut down. But again, give us folks a minute to get in here. Still getting an echo, or we good? I know there's a little bit of a delay here. Okay, cool. All right, good. Well, how are you guys doing? Thanks so much for joining tonight. Again, I want to get like straight to business. I don't want to waste your time. Thank you for being here. But at the same time, give people like 3 minutes to get in. So if you guys, I'll give you, I don't know, housekeeping stuff. And, let me know where you guys are coming from, your experience levels. I always want to make these trainings kind of interactive. And I'll tell you how I'm going to do things tonight. Okay, where are you guys from? Let's see. Let me go to my webinar room and my YouTube chat. Where are you guys coming from? All right, good. Glad that's working. Webinar is good. Cool. Okay, guys. So just really quickly, I'm going to let you know, I do want to answer your questions, but I also want to be very, very efficient. If you guys have been on any of my trainings in the past, sometimes they've been 2 hours. I've been known to go for 5-hour trainings. I can talk about this business all day long. It's a really exciting business. But in any event, in the interest of keeping things short, this is going to be a 4-day training, more or less trying to shoot for about 30 minutes a day. So I'm going to keep them really fast to the point, not waste time with a lot of fluff stuff you see on a lot of like webinars. So I am going to encourage you to ask your questions, but I'll probably save Q&A for the end so I can just kind of rock right through this, okay? So I'm going to give it, I don't know, like another 2 minutes or so. If you guys have any initial questions, starting questions, you can feel free to pop that in there. I can knock those out for you. Let's see, we got some Central Pennsylvania. Let's see, DFW, okay. Richmond, Virginia. Cool. Let's see my other room. Okay, I've got Alabama, North Carolina. Cool. Okay. Good stuff, man. We got people from everywhere. All right. And then let me ask you guys this. What are you hoping to get out of the training? Maybe what's your biggest question, your biggest struggle? It's probably in here, but if not, I'd be happy to, add it in, right? Add a couple slides throughout over the course of the next few days. Make sure you bookmark the time. Make sure you're signed up through my website. That way you can get the links every day because those will be different every day. Website again is wholesalingwithmike.com/challenge. I'll type that in the box a little bit later. But yeah, what are you guys looking to get out of this, right? Where are you maybe struggling? Are you brand new? Have you done some deals? Get to know my audience a little bit. What else? What do you find harder? Finding motivated sellers or finding cash buyers? Let me know all that stuff. And then that'll also help me kind of know where I'm looking for, where to focus as we move forward, right? I want to make sure that you guys get what you kind of came for. Okay, leads is the biggest struggle here. Okay, cool. And you are from Aaron, where again? Let me know. But we'll talk about leads. I want to say that's going to be day 3, where we'll talk a little bit more about leads. I'm going to share with you guys my favorite strategy. I'm going to share with you my favorite number 1 best performing list. So stay tuned. Make sure you guys show up all 4 days. On that note, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Yeah, any last minute questions, let me know, and then I'm going to go ahead and get started. Get a sip of water, warm up the vocals here. All right, cool. Okay, so welcome everyone to tonight's training. This is the new cyber wholesaling method, how I cash multiple 10K plus checks every single month using nothing but a laptop and Wi-Fi, meaning how you can flip houses, right, without meeting sellers, without meeting buyers, or even visiting properties. Very excited to be here. Make sure you grab a pen and paper. You want to be taking notes. Make sure there'll be a couple screens I'll put up that you guys can take screenshots. And let's go ahead and jump right into this. We're going to be very efficient. I'm shooting for about 30-minute sessions per day. So with that said, wholesaling in a nutshell, I'm going to assume that you guys who are here already know what wholesaling is. This is not really for the brand new person, but wholesaling real estate is a strategy where you put a property under contract at a discount, and then you assign that contract to an investor for a profit without ever owning the property. That's it in simplest terms. Don't overcomplicate this stuff. It's what your grocery store does, right? They buy bananas at a cheaper price, they mark it up, and then they sell it to you at the grocery store. That's pretty much all that we're doing here, okay? We are the pawn shop of real estate. That also means we're not in the business of trying to convince people to give us really good discounts. There exists a subsegment of the population, they have to sell. The same way people come into a pawn shop, they're in some type of financial situation, some type of struggle, and it's in their best interest to sell an item even below what it's worth because they need that cash and they need it fast. So that's essentially what we're doing here. This is also known as flipping paper. By far the fastest and simplest way to make 10K or more every single month, and you can do this without using your own cash or credit. And again, that's if you just do 1 deal a month, one average kind of mediocre deal. But so many new wholesalers, probably a lot of you guys here, are still struggling. And why is that? Well, the reason is you're using tactics and strategies from like 2015 and trying to compete and do deals in today's competitive marketplace. So a lot of new wholesalers, it's like, guys, you would not use even a computer from 10 years ago. So why are you still using these strategies and not taking advantage of technology and automation and AI? You're going to get left behind. And that's not to say I'm hating on it, but not to say these old ways don't work at all. They still work, but it's like, why are you doing things the hard way, especially when your competition is just flying right by you? So the old ways, I'm going to say, of doing wholesale deals, I consider them dead, okay? It doesn't need to be very complicated, but there's just a few tweaks, a couple things you can do in your business. It's going to make this a lot easier for you. So you have to embrace change. You got to utilize technology. You have to capitalize on AI, the biggest opportunity right now, and learn to adapt. And that's what we're going to be covering in this training. So again, this is in this 4-part series. I'm going to teach you this new cyber wholesaling method. It's 100% remote, so you no longer need to be meeting sellers or buyers or going to these properties. You don't even need to go to the title company for your closing anymore, okay? And some of you guys are familiar with virtual wholesaling. This terminology, I like cyber wholesaling because while it is virtual, there's also an emphasis on automation and putting a lot of the heavy lifting, a lot of the tasks that are very much time consuming that you used to do manually, taking advantage of automations, AI, and so the whole thing is virtual, but you're taking advantage of technology, okay? So here's what we're going to cover specifically. I'm going to show you step by step how to set up your business so you can make a deal within the next 6 weeks. That's the target that I'm looking for. I want to show you the most important KPIs that you have to track if you want to guarantee you do deals every month. It's going to tell you exactly what you need to do. You can reverse engineer it, show you on a daily basis what it takes to get a deal more or less guaranteed. The best wholesaling strategy for finding motivated seller leads today. I think it's going to be video 3, where I show you my favorite list. 4 components to running a successful wholesaling business. So we're going to talk about research and planning, marketing and strategy, acquisitions and systems. So how to utilize automations and AI to nurture your leads and get deals. Dispositions and systems. So how to build that solid buyers list, have the ability to sell your deals very, very quickly. And then 3 really, really common mistakes that pretty much everyone makes, myself included when I first started, that will guarantee failure even if you're doing everything else correctly. I call that the 1 degree shift. You guys know that analogy, like if a plane's taking off from New York headed to LA and it gets off by 1 degree, you don't really see it at first, but over time, it just takes you hundreds of miles away from your destination. That's something I see very, very often. So why now is the best time to get started with this? Look, times are changing. This is not political, but status quo is not comfortably sustainable for most people. There's skyrocketing living expenses attributed to housing, food, gas, the tariffs, whatever it is. Average worker is working harder and compensated less. And basically, you're trading time for money. That's like the worst part. But there is massive opportunity now. Even in some of the unknown things, like disruption creates opportunity, especially for a business like this where you're essentially a glorified middleman. So one thing I'll talk about, I'll give an example of this later, but this may just be media sensationalization, a little bit of speculation. But even when you're hearing about federal housing, that money might start getting cut. Well, for some people, you're going to see the headlines. It's going to be crazy and it's going to be massive panic. But that could also create opportunity. Even if the money moves on a state level, there's going to be some disruption. You're going to have landlords who have tenants who don't have the ability to pay. And then that money's going to dry up. And there's going to be a time where some of those landlords can't make their mortgage payment. And so even though that might suck for people in that situation, there's an opportunity there. So a lot of stuff that you hear and see in the media that makes, everybody think it's all doom and gloom, there's going to be a lot of opportunity there. There's also so much opportunity with advancements in AI and automation and virtual tools. And again, you can wholesale nationwide from your laptop and you never need to step foot in a property. I promise you guys, I wanted to keep this training like really short. So if you guys have been on webinars before and like you have freaking 30 minutes of somebody's life story, I hate that. I'm way too impatient. Hopefully you guys know my story. If not, I don't know, go to my YouTube channel. Quick introduction, why the heck you should listen to me. This is all you need to know. I've been in this business since 2012. Been doing it full time. Flipped hundreds of houses. I did my first deal without spending a penny, so I know what it's like. Quit my 9 to 5 in less than 6 months of doing my first deal. Made my first 6 figures in the next 12 months. I work about 20 hours a week in my wholesaling business. That's pretty much the life story, okay? And my work is remote. I like to throw Jade in here. That's my daughter. It's always been my driving force. And I say that because you want to have a strong why for this business. And as much as I'm a self-admitted greedy capitalist and I got in here for the money, what I'm really wanting you guys to attain is just this freedom. Initially, when I got into the business, I was working a lot. We're talking crazy hours every week. And I really got into this to give me my time back so I could be a better father, so I could spend time doing the things I love. And so I want you guys to think about that as we go through the business. So that's it. I don't want to do too much longer on that. I've got tons of success stories. You guys want to check the testimonials, go to my website. The good thing about this business that's awesome is this is all public record, right? You can't fake these screenshots and stuff like that. You can go look all this stuff up, their HUD statements. I've started wholesaling in 2012. I started coaching in 2017, right? And so these are some of my students. And so basically I've been doing deals with students since 2017 up until last week. Last week we did $17,000 closing. First deal, one of my students, some highlights here. This is Logan. This was earlier this year, maybe January, February, did an $80,000 assignment deal. I always like to put Oscars up here. He still has the title for, this guy was living in New York, did 2 deals in Florida, flipped his first 2 deals on the same day, no money down, never saw the properties, never met sellers, buyers. And again, first 2 deals done in the same day. I got stories on there. There's a video testimonial from a guy who was homeless. He was living in Hollywood Beach, taking showers at the beach. He's got a great story that's on my website. He made $22,000 on his first deal. So tons of success stories. You guys can check that out. But let's go ahead and get down to business, man. All right. So real quick, why I chose wholesaling is just that if you're on the fence about looking at other different types of businesses, you know you're entrepreneurial minded, you know you don't want to work for a boss, you can like screw that 9-to-5 stuff. There's no other business where you can start with little to no money, okay? Take on zero risk, literally, run it completely virtually, control a proven, tangible, in-demand asset. Real estate will always be an asset that people are buying, and it's profitable in a growing economy or during a recession, and you can produce 5-figure profits in a matter of weeks. Like, if you're doing crypto, you need money to get started. Drop shipping, man, you working to make $10 profits, not $10,000 profits. Uber, you need your car. Again, very small profit margin there. You need insurance, all that stuff. Stocks, you need money to start your Amazon store. I mean, franchise, $500,000, okay? This is the business that differentiates itself. So I'm kind of selling you guys on this if you're still on the fence and maybe trying a little bit of stuff, because one of the mistakes is really just having that split attention. But the thing is, when I first started, and this is the problem with traditional wholesaling a lot of you guys are doing, me with the beard, it's very time consuming, okay? You have physical market limitations, so you're working in your backyard. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. Very labor intensive. You're meeting with buyers, you're meeting with sellers, you're walking through people's houses. Half of them are not qualified. They're not what you're looking for. Travel expenses, even if you're driving for dollars, you got gas money. You have to operate specific times. You got to always be there. And I say that because I was the guy doing that, okay? I was up at 3 o'clock putting out bandit signs, on weekends. I was doing door knocking, driving for dollars. I've been in really bad neighborhoods. I've dealt with crazy situation, crazy ass people. And it's just not cool. It's not really fun. And it's, I quit my job to give myself that more time, but I ended up giving myself a second job. So again, just trading time for money. So now with this whole cyber wholesaling thing, technology is really, really exciting. 100% virtual. You can work from anywhere, more flexibility with your time, and you can work. This is the big one here, right? You can work in more lucrative, high demand markets. So deals are easier to find and they're easier to sell, and there's more profit margin there, especially when you get in these markets where you can start bidding wars between these buyers. You don't meet with sellers or buyers or see properties, less overhead, less expenses. Even some people get worried about technology. Oh, I don't have money. Per lead, the cost per lead using like some of these AI tools, some of which are free, it's a lot less expensive. You'll save money as opposed to some of the older ways of doing this stuff. So let technology and AI do most of the work for you. So this is the biggest takeaway that I want you guys to have from this training. If you're screenshotting or taking notes, this is it, okay? Systems, the biggest thing I want you to take away. So most new wholesalers that I talk to, that I've dealt with over the years, they learn the business and then they just start trying tactics. And, most people actually get stuck in like paralysis analysis. They're in one foot in, one foot out. But for those who do take action, which is better than nothing, they just start trying stuff like a little bit almost kind of random, right? So there's no blueprint, there's no planning, it's just random activity. And they just, they watch a YouTube video, they try a little bit, watch something else, try a little bit. And then within their business, there's a lack of consistency. So every lead gets treated a little bit differently. It's like, when do you call this person back? Oh, when I have time, I forgot to do it. And the follow-up is very inconsistent. It happens when it's convenient. And, if we look at a company like Amazon, why are they so successful? It's because everything is streamlined. And that's what you want in your business. Everything needs to move kind of like a well-oiled machine. All right. So your business needs to run like a well-oiled machine built on uniform and consistent systems and processes, meaning every lead gets treated the same. Okay. This is called the McDonaldization for anyone who, like McDonald's, right? Every burger is cooked the same. Every process is the same. And that's what keeps it so effective and so efficient. So that's the biggest takeaway from the training. Okay. So now on day one, we got to talk about the foundational work. This, admittedly, this is the boring stuff. This is simplistic. It's not sexy. There's no eye-opening. Some of this stuff you may have heard before. I'm not talking about the AI and the cool stuff today. But this is the stuff that, because it's so simple, it often gets overlooked. And if you don't do this first, even with everything I'm going to show you in the later videos, it's just not going to work, okay? So mistake number one that I see is improper research and planning. So most new wholesalers choose their market very much arbitrarily or improperly. So they limit themselves to their physical market. They believe this advice. I see this in so many Facebook groups. Where's the best place to wholesale? Oh, right in your backyard because you know it better. Well, sure, but what if I live in Nebraska? Is it really? Okay. It impacts their strategy. So for some people, let's say you are driving for dollars, again, could still work, but that's good in some markets, but that guarantees failure in other markets, and you'll create a mismatch. They choose a market based on speculation or hearsay. So, oh, this my auntie said this place is up and coming. It's like, no, bro, that's not how you want to do this. They believe if you build it, if you just get a deal, the buyers are going to come to you. Doesn't work like that. And then a lot of people want to be everywhere. It's another mistake, right? So when I talk to, people, I do free one-on-one calls. I say, where are you targeting? They're like, oh, I'm in Arizona and I'm in North Carolina and I'm in Alabama and I'm doing Florida. And their attention as well as resources are quite frankly just spread way too thin. Okay. So this is part of the action plan where you really need to start. Back to when I was talking about where a lot of wholesalers mess up, it's they don't have this plan, okay? And it starts here. Is the equivalent of like you want to build a house, you go to Home Depot, you get all the lumber, the plumbing, the pipes, the toilets, you come home and you just start putting it together. It's like, no, you need a blueprint to work off of. And again, it's not the sexy stuff, but trust me, it's important. Next, just ignore the naysayers. This is more just like FYI. There's always going to be people saying there's no inventory. I'm sure you guys hear that. There's no sellers. Nobody's buying. It's Chicken Little, sky is falling. Don't listen to that. I want you guys to know just there's always going to be motivated sellers. Okay, right now, foreclosures, 1 in every 2,500 homes in some form of foreclosure. Year over year, foreclosures are currently up about 10% right now over last year. Divorces, we know it's like a 50% divorce rate in the country. Evictions over 3.6 million each year. So that's 7.8 out of 100 renters. And back to what I talked about earlier, talks of cuts to federal housing assistance, Section 8 programs. So that could be massive, a massive opportunity. Job loss, over 50,000 people lose their jobs every day. These are the things that create motivation, right? So it's 1.6 million a month. Tax delinquencies, inherited properties, natural disasters, damaged properties, for sale by owner, stuff on the MLS. My point here is, again, to succeed at this, you got to be all in, okay? And if you're on the fence or you're trying to run 2-3 different businesses as side hustles at once, it's not going to work. But this is me just showing you that this, regardless of what you hear, especially in these Facebook groups, this is always going to be here. It's not going everywhere. And these are things that are not static. New inventory comes onto the market every single day as a result of each of these different categories. So again, there's always going to be investors. There's always going to be people buying real estate, whether it's a seller's market or a buyer's market. And remember, you're the middleman in all of this. So when you hear home prices are falling, the market is tanking, it's getting messed up, then you got to realize is that's an opportunity because the people with deep pockets, the people who have cash on hand, similar to stocks, right? Buy low, sell high. That's when those people come in and they scoop up as much as they can, okay? So it doesn't really matter where the economy is. You'll always find opportunity, but you have to know kind of where to look for it. So what I want you to start with, right, is to research potential markets. And I like this little graphic here because assuming, let's hypothetically speaking, right, hold all costs of running this franchise static. Obviously, the lease in Manhattan, the square footage is going to cost you more, but wholesaling is not like that. The costs are going to be the same. So, for example, this business, they make the same hamburgers. Let's call their costs, their building, their meats, everything is the same. Would you rather be in the market, the restaurant on the left or the one on the right? And hopefully that's just a graphic to exemplify to you that the amount of effort is going to be the same business, same effort, but very, very different results because you're going where people are already lined up to get what it is that you want to, what you're selling them, okay? So don't try to create demand. You want to go where demand already exists, and that will increase your ROI. So when I was talking about Nebraska earlier, it's like, listen, could you do a deal in Nebraska? Probably. There are probably some cash buyers there, but listen, if I spend, 50 hours and $5,000 to get a deal in Nebraska, I might be able to do it. But one, is that sustainable every month? And two, I could take those same 50 hours, the same $5,000, and I go to Miami and I can get 5 deals. And then I could have, instead of a pool of, 100 buyers, I can have 5,000 buyers fighting for that same deal and starting bidding wars and giving me above my asking price. So that's the point here, is that
because we're doing this virtually, you don't need to be in your backyard. You want to find the best market and go play there because people are already buying. It's a lot easier to sell people stuff they're already trying to buy. So how do we do that? What you always got to go to data. Don't go to hearsay, speculation, all that. So what happens is, because it's a matter of public record, when a deed is recorded, they record the lender, right? So this is in a public record. This is an example. You'll see the lender name here. So where there's no lender, we know that that's going to be a cash buyer. Not 100% of the time, but most likely. And you can find this information. So this is some stuff you might want to write down, some sources to find cash buyer data. You can go to propwire.com. It's completely free source. Privy, paid source, but absolutely worth it. It'll give you some extras, and there are some other cool things, services they provide. PropStream is another one. You can go straight to the MLS, and even your title companies can help you out with this kind of information. And so from there, once you have access to those lists of cash buyers, then you want to do a market analysis and figure out where is the demand. So you create these heat maps, right? You'll see here, if I'm trying to pick a market, I can just look at this bird's eye view and know, okay, I don't want to be here where there's, where's my pointer? Six cash buyers here versus I can come up here 134, right? So now I know where to start zooming in. From there, I want to know where the buyers are buying. I want to know what they're buying, what types of properties they're buying, and I want to understand why they're buying. And that's very different because some areas are better for, let's say, high-end fix and flips, where investors are going in, they're fixing the property up nice, they're putting in granite countertops and stainless steel and quartz and all this big crown molding and stuff, versus an area that's ripe for Section 8 tenants, where investors aren't doing that, right? They're slapping some paint on the wall and they're putting tenants in there for Section 8 money. And so the way they analyze those deals and their buying criteria looks very, very different. And that's something you need to understand. So you start off very general, big picture, you get more granular, right? So you got to start going layers deeper. And when I say what they're actually paying, this goes back to the max allowable offer formula. Most of you guys know 70% times ARV minus repairs minus profit. It's largely ineffective. It's a good starting point, but that's alone is not enough. That's going to make you probably put offers in the wrong places. And it's also predicated on this idea that all cash buyers buy for the same reason. So like I talked about the renter versus the flipper. Well, how about someone who has $500,000 in cash versus someone who's using a hard money loan and they're paying application fees, origination fees, 4 points, 12% interest? Like, their buying criteria is very different. And I'm telling you this because, again, you have to go off of the data and not off these kind of hypothetical formulas. Again, predicated on the idea that buyers buy for the same reasons. It does not account for actual market demand, and you want to use this actual verifiable data instead of these these formulas. Okay, so here's some additional guidelines and target metrics. This is generalized, but and it will vary by market. But just to give you guys an idea of what you're looking for, I like to work in larger counties where the population is above 750,000 people. Markets I work, Miami, for example, millions of people there. And then around those areas, usually on the outskirts of those areas, that's where demand starts to pick up. You typically a lot of more new construction. And as those really in demand areas get more and more saturated, then people start building out from there. So those are also really good places to be. When you're in those types of areas and you pull this data, ideally you want to be seeing about 500 plus cash sales a month. Again, this is generalized, but to give you an idea, if you're in a good market for this, okay? Now, what I consider a target market, that could still be several counties in the same area. And in smaller counties will obviously have less buyers, but you still got to see that demand. So if you're in a real small county, it's less than, 250,000 people in the population. You want to be seeing at least like 50 cash sales a month. Mid-sized counties, 250 to 750, 100 to 300 cash sales per month. That's kind of where you want to be to understand if you're in a good target market. You got to understand that supply and demand migration trends, absorption rate. This is a big one, and people don't talk about it, okay? So that's the number of properties sold divided by the total number of available properties times 100. That's just to give you an idea of what type of market you're in. And this varies. It's not just a nationwide thing. So, for example, if you have a high absorption rate, you're in a seller's market. That's where homes are selling really fast. Low absorption, sub 15% buyer's market. So the homes are sitting a little bit longer. And so here's a quick little graphic if you guys want to, screenshot it or something like that. If you are in, hot seller's market, that's where homes are selling in under 30 days. you could be up there 75 to 85% of ARV. If you're in a cold buyer's market all the way on the bottom, homes are sitting for 6+ months on the MLS. So then you need to be about 50 to 60%. And the reason this is very important, guys, because listen, when I've done deals in like places like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and I have wholesale these deals for 85% of ARV. And they went like this. Now, if I was going to those houses, right, those sellers, and making offers at ARV times 70%, I'm going to get beat out, or they're going to say, no way. Like, I'm not going to get the contract, so I'm not going to have an opportunity to sell, to wholesale, to flip the house. But that varies on your market, because then if I'm like, oh, well, I sold a house in Miami for 85% of ARV, so now I'm going to go up to Virginia, or tell my students in Virginia, hey, you could do 85%. Well, when they do that, they'll get the contract, but when they go to sell it, there's not going to be buyers who are going to take that. So their offer price needs to be way different. So that's, some general guidelines. But again, you got to go back to the actual data. So hopefully you guys understand the point that I'm making there, and trying to understand some of these numbers. So some research resources that you guys can use. These are free resources, and just take the time to do this. I promise you it is worth your while. So just a couple of examples here. If you look up U-Haul trends, just Google search that, you'll come to the U-Haul growth index, and it's got a lot of information on migration trends. So for example, if I come down here, we'll look at Arizona, it'll tell me the growth state, arrival percentage, departure percentage, and then look here, the notable growth markets. You want to pay attention to that stuff. It means all the effort that you're putting in, the resources, you're already spending the time, the effort, the money, put it somewhere where you're going to get the fastest return, and you're going to get the most bang for your buck. Realtor.com, like a lot of people, we sleep on these sites because they're free third-party sites. Guys, there's so much information in here, right? If you go here, 2025 housing market predictions, 2024 hottest zip codes, like come in here, click on this stuff, read around, figure this stuff up, look up where you're planning on wholesaling, and look for information and their key takeaways. Like, take the time to actually go through and read this stuff and actually look at the data, understand where median listing prices are at. It is just a wealth of absolutely fantastic information here. And then also, if we're going on a site like Redfin, right? If you come down, you can look at the U.S. housing market, tons of data. You can get, everything from sales prices to number of homes sold to days on market, your absorption rates. And then even though there's general stuff about the U.S. as a whole, you can come down and really understand, right? If you come to the bottom, you can look at this stuff by city. And so you go and you figure out, okay, Fort Lauderdale, I'm interested in there. And you understand what's actually happening in your market, okay? And then from there, so you have all your sites. Heck, you could go to ChatGPT and ask them, hey, I'm like, is this a good market? Give me some information. And it'll aggregate and give you those details. And then, even when I talk about AI, and we'll get into it more, a lot of people get, I guess, intimidated by it because it's new, but it's just that simple, right? This is not like you got to be a crazy programmer. Go to ChatGPT, ask them about your target market and see what's going on, okay? So those are some resources that you guys can use. Now, in addition to that, right, market analysis alone is not enough. You also want to have a property archetype. So again, look at those those cash purchases, and manipulate that data, right? Looking for trends, the area, the volume, the prices, the size, the aesthetic, and what are your buyers actually buying. So for me, for example, what I typically look for are entry-level single-family homes, stuff built after, 1950, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, sells best, over 1,000 square feet, concrete block. Remember, I'm in Florida, so wood frame, they sell, but you have to get them at much better pricing. But also depends on the area. Like if I'm in Jacksonville, a lot of those areas, especially like more like the hood, those are a lot of wood frame, right? If I'm in Tampa, same thing. So you understand kind of where you are. No war zones, no luxury, no gated communities, no 55 plus. That's ideal. That's not to say that I couldn't flip, and I haven't flipped. I've done multifamily, I've done condos, I've done townhouses, I've done 55 plus, I've flipped in gated communities. It's just that, like any marketer will tell you, don't try to sell to everyone, okay? You should have a target person in mind, a target demographic. Now, when other stuff kind of falls into your lap, that's cool, but you should have something here. So in my head, when I picture it, it's like, I'm going to sell a beat up house in a good neighborhood, kind of white picket fence, there's a school nearby, to an investor who's going to flip that, fix it up and flip it to a first-time home buyer, a couple who just got married, they just had their first kid, they want, a safe area, house about 350K. That's kind of what you want to have in mind. And then the big thing to stress here is that even I maybe threw a lot at you guys, this is not meant to be a long exercise, okay? This can literally be completed in a single day, maybe a weekend, but literally we're talking a couple of hours to just understand where you're at and where your market looks like. And if you do this, I promise you, one day you'll do deals faster, you'll maximize your efficiency, you will save time, you will save money, and it's going to save you about 6+ months of spinning wheels. Guys, I've talked to you, I couldn't tell you how many wholesalers over the years, over a decade, and as simplistic as this is one of the biggest mistakes, again, going back to your blueprint, your plan, that people make initially. So, quick little recap. Cyber wholesaling advantage number one is that you work the best, most lucrative markets. It's the same amount of money you'll spend, same amount of effort, same amount of time, same resources, but exponentially more profit. And you have guaranteed cash buyers for your deals, because when you're starting with the data of actual cash buyers, then you know exactly what to look for. And then when you find that, you can go back to your cash buyers and say, hey, I know you bought the house at 123 Main Street. I got a house at 456 Main Street. Take a look, which is very different from what most wholesalers do, because I get calls all the time with new wholesalers and they're like, can you tell me about your buy box? I really want to put you on my list. And it's like, man, once you get 100 of those calls, you're just like, stop calling me until you have something that I want to buy. And that's how you also build much, much better relationships with your buyers, okay? And then also, there's no shortage of inventory, because imagine you spent all this time, again, I'm picking on Nebraska today, but you go back to Nebraska, you spend all this time and money and all this stuff, and then you go to find a cash buyer and they're just not there, okay? And you just wasted all that time, money, and effort. That's one. Simple, but important. Okay, so actionable items. Any trainings I do, I like to make it actionable, right? So not just theory. What is the next step? The next step is to research and choose your target market, okay? Pull those. I gave you the websites, PropWire, PropStream, Privy PropStream, MLS. Like, go look at all that stuff. And then U-Haul, Redfin, Realtor.com, ChatGPT. Just use them a couple hours. That's it. Get laser focused on one market, okay? Especially if you're just getting started, or you're the solopreneur, or you have time budget limitations. I have a questionnaire on my website, and it says for new wholesalers, it says, where do you want to market or work? And they usually name like 10 different cities. And what I tell people is like, listen, man, it's not that you can't do 10 different areas, but it's just the analogy I give people is like this. Okay, let's say you have $100 grand and you want to open a restaurant. You would take the $100 grand, you'd make sure you have the absolute best restaurant ever, right? You do quality control, you hire the best management team, the best social media marketing team, you put out, you make the best food, right? You hire the best chef, and then you get influencers to make a line around the block. And then once that restaurant starts popping off and becoming really profitable, then you open your second and third location. As opposed to, imagine someone's like, I got 100K, but if I open 5 restaurants, I'll make 5 times as much money. They open 5 restaurants now. They don't have the budget to advertise. Their costs go up. They're paying the lease everywhere. The quality of the food goes. They can't advertise. Then the lease pricing on 4 starts to drain money from the entire business, and the whole thing crashes. That's what happens when you're trying to do multiple areas. You just spread too thin. I'll go into more detail on that in just a second. And then create that property archetype, okay? So that's base level, foundational. I know it's boring, but you got to do that, or the other stuff I'll teach you won't matter. Okay, mistake number 2, in a very similar vein, is your strategy selection. So a lot of wholesalers, they do this incorrectly. And the reason is that this was perfect for that example I just gave about the restaurant. They're attempting multiple random strategies at once, right? So they get shiny object syndrome. I watch this YouTube video, this one. And so they're trying a bunch of stuff, okay? And often, this is the big part, without understanding those KPIs, those key performance indicators. This is far more important than most people realize, and it's important for a number of different things, both for planning for the future and like understanding where your business is right now and how fast you can grow and what it takes and goals and metrics. We're going to get into that in like a couple of slides. And understand that what works for one wholesaler won't necessarily work for you. It's not even necessarily the wrong thing. It just might be the wrong the right thing, but at the wrong time. Like, you're not there yet. And sometimes I'll have students come to me and, yo, I heard this from, and it'll be a great, huge, lovely wholesaler that I respect and admire. Jerry Norton said this. Are you saying Jerry's wrong? I'm saying, no, Jerry's completely right. It's just you're not there right now. Some of these people, hey, you need to get on this program and you never need to cold call again. It's like, yeah, but you don't have money like they do, okay? If I were trying to bring a soft drink to market, I wouldn't say, people say study the masters, of course, but I wouldn't say, well, Coca-Cola spends $1 billion on marketing, so I got to do that. Like, no, you got to kind of find your lane. And so the newbie plan kind of looks like this, right? You look at all these different lead sources, right? Okay, this software and this list, and then strategy. So they kind of throw everything to the wall with this mentality of like, okay, I'll try a little bit of everything and something's going to stick, right? And then they'll get a result, but they don't know even where it came from because usually their tracking sucks. Another graphic that I made, very crude, but it's like, if you imagine each of these lines is some form of like effort. One could be your effort, one could be your time, one could be your money. This is you spreading it over different strategies. And so you're never hitting, this red line is the threshold, what it takes to make a deal. So when you're doing all this stuff, most people I talk to, they're not lazy. Like, they work their ass off, and they're smart and they're hardworking, but they're spread so thin they never get here. Whereas what I'm encouraging you to do is figure out one thing that's going to work for you right now. Put all your energy into that thing until you get the deal. Now, some people struggle, Mike, I don't want to spend $1,000. I don't have $1,000 to spend on X. Well, all you got to do is get your first deal. And maybe the first deal is a little bit harder than most, especially if you're starting like I did without like a penny, literally. But once you get that first deal, you got 10K, 20K to play with. And it gets much easier to start using other strategies. So this is the, I've tried everything. That's the most people I talk to. And what they're doing is going wide and shallow. So this example is like, okay, imagine digging for gold. You dig over every cubic inch of the United States, but you're only going like 2 feet deep. You're going to be working hard, but you're never going to get there. Versus someone who says, okay, I'm going to figure out where everyone else found gold and do the research and find out what equipment they used and, where they're prospecting. And then once I target and hone in on that area and what method they use, then I'm going to start going deep. The idea here is you need to go narrow and deep instead of wide and shallow. And the way that you do that is you need to do some self audits and understand where you are in the game right now and what you can commit to. So students that come into like any of my programs, they all have to go through a series of audits, which is one, like planning out their schedule. We do an exercise called a reverse schedule. They do an audit of their available time. They do an audit of their available resources, an audit of their financial situation. And based on that, they say, well, if my budget is X amount, $0, $100, whatever it is, then there's a plan on how to best allocate that money. And it's not these crazy jumps. Oh, I don't have $10,000. It's like, listen, if you have $0, you do everything like the super, let's say, free way. And that means, if you had a skip trace, you copy and paste into cyberbackgroundchecks.com or True People Search. It takes a while. But now when you get to, I have $100 to spend. Oh, okay, go skip trace 100. Yeah, but my list is 1,000. Well, skip trace 100 the fast way, and then, you get a deal from there, or do the other 900 the slow way and make some money. And so when we're doing this exercise, right, the budget exercise in particular, remember, I want to keep this actionable. So that's the first thing you want to do is start with your budget audit. The way I tell people is like, nobody gets into the business to be frugal, right? But I have everyone go through their bank account, their statements. I have them go through their credit cards. And I say, for a season, there are seasons in the game, you got to be cheap, right? So find the areas. If you have Netflix and you have PlayStation Plus and you ate out at a restaurant twice this week and you went to the bar and you bought a new pair of Jordans and you got a new phone and you ordered Uber Eats like 3 times last week, I'm like, you got to cut all that out just temporarily to understand what it is that you're actually working with. Because, you could pick up a couple extra shifts at work, do some overtime, have a garage sale, sell your PlayStation, sell the old laptop, do odd jobs on Craigslist. I did all that shit, right? And then the more money you have, it's not that you need money to do this, but to the degree that you have it, it makes everything go so much faster, okay? So that's the first thing, is really understanding where you are. And you want to look at it the way a bank would look at you if they were like trying to qualify you for a mortgage, right? So what can this person pay for this mortgage, for this loan, for the next 6 months? that is going to be your strategy. And you don't want to just do these, again, I'm switching tactics every week, right? You want to be solid with that. And whatever it is, even if it's $0, I can work with it. I can teach you how to do that, right? But you really want to understand where it is that you are. And then you want to review the metrics required to do a deal. So I'm kind of a big data analytics nerd. And what I try to do is get people to understand exactly what it takes to do a deal. And that's one of the reasons I made a video on this recently where I talked about why I don't like teaching driving for dollars or bandit signs, even though those are the old ways of wholesaling that I hated on today. They can work, right? But I can't predict when. So you could drive for dollars for a week and get a deal. You could drive for 6 months and not get a deal. You could put out one bandit sign and get a deal. You put out 100 and get nothing. I want to do things that are predictable, where I know if I make this many calls, I'll get a deal. If I spend this much money, I'll get a deal. And it's really an understanding that you come out with, the blueprint, the plan that's going to make you successful. So this is a KPI scorecard and cheat sheet. And if we go over here, right? This is one of the most important things in your business. I use a version of this where I would update a lot of this manually every week. And in my students, some of them not the best with like Excel. So what I did is created this that does an entire year, right? So you'll see it starts with week 1 all the way to week 52 for all of your metrics. Now, if you guys stick with me for throughout the training for the next 4 days, you're going to get a copy of this for free. That's my first free gift and bonus to you, but it's really, really valuable. And everything in here is pretty much automated. So the way it works is that I tell my students, set an alarm at 9 p.m. every night. And you could do it throughout the day, but I always have them set the alarm. And at 9 p.m., you come in here and you say, okay, well, how much did I spend? How many calls did I make? It might be 0. This is dummy data in here now, right? How many leads did I get? And that's all you do. These other tabs, all automated, right? So this is going to tell you your week over week performance. And then this, when you guys get this, I'm going to hide this because you don't need to touch it. But if you want to see how you're doing week over week, this weekly KPIs gives you all your data each week. And you'll see this one, don't play with these at the formulas up here, okay? If you mess one thing up, it's going to throw off all your data. So don't touch that, right? And then the monthly aggregate, because like some of the weeks, for example, you'll have overlap, right? So again, this week 5, you have January overlapping with February. And I didn't want you to look at like your monthly performance as like weeks 1 through 4. You want to look at it January, February, March. So this is designed a little bit differently so you get the totals per month. And this is how you can accurately determine how your business is doing. Now, in the next video, we're going to come into this to talk about the tracking aspect and what you need to be measuring and why that's so important. But for today, we're going to use this tool in a little bit of a different way, in that we want to look at the target, right? So the target is basically what it takes to do a deal. Now, again, will have some variation. It'll depend on your market a little bit, but this kind of tells you where you need to be. Now, a little bit of a maybe a disclaimer here. So for cold calling, if you were to look at an average wholesaler or somebody else's KPI tracker, this number, the cost per qualified lead, is probably going to be a little bit higher. The reason is because they're probably using VAs. They might be using paid sources for some of their lists, and they're probably using like a dialer system. So this, again, was built for my students, and students in my program, they have access to my dialer for free, basically, for included in their mentorship. So that's not included in there. It doesn't take into account VAs and stuff like that. So at that point, you could change some of this stuff. D is the only column you want to change, your target. But this is coming from my data, so it's going to be a little bit different depending on your market. And there's some kind of industry averages in here. But this lets you know, one, well, the planning we'll get to in a minute, but also it's like, am I on the right track, right? And the reason it's important to know how many calls it takes, how many deals it takes. And again, it'll vary depending on like what list source you use and, you know, how often you work and things like that. But that's important because I give my students the analogy. Listen, if you were thrown into the ocean, you couldn't see any land around you, you're just swimming. You don't know when you're going to hit land. You're so much likely to just drown much faster than, let's say you saw an island 2 miles away. And even if you're a bad swimmer, because you can see the goal, you're so much more likely to get there. And the big experiment they did is called the HOPE experiment. I think it was at Yale or one of these big schools. And they would take these rats and drop them in a container of water. And they found that the rats would swim for about 15 minutes, then drown and die. Then they did it again. They put them in the water. And right before when they started going, they take them out, dry them off, take care of them. then they put them back in again. And basically, it's called the hope experiment because they were giving them hope. And when the rats felt like they knew where they were going, they swam for like, I think it was like 72 hours. So an imperfect analogy there, but essentially what I'm saying here is when you know what it takes, you're not going to be that person that stops 3 feet from gold. You're going to say, oh man, I spent $200. Oh, am I behind? Am I not behind? Should I just quit? I don't want to waste any more money. What if I end up spending $500 and I still don't see a return? Well, you come here, you're like, I spent $200 on cold calling. Man, I'm only $75 more to go and I'm going to get a deal. So that's kind of what you need to understand. Now, some of the other things could change here. So on market, it doesn't cost anything to make an offer. If you wanted to include, maybe I want to keep $1,000 earnest money deposit, you could keep that, but I don't, because that's not a marketing cost. So I didn't put that in there. Now, if you're using a system like Privy, that's going to allow you to find these deals a lot faster. So you might want to put that in there and calculate that. Direct mail, this is based on an automation I'm going to show you guys where the mail is printed, everything's done for you. It's just click of a button, fully automated. Now, if you do direct mail the way I first did it, and I went to Walmart, I printed the letters at home, I'm stuffing and stamping and with all that, you could probably cut that down by about half, right? You could probably get a deal with about, I'd say $1,700, about, $1,500 to $2,000, right? With direct mail. But that's what I mean when I'm talking about making it predictable, because what happens is people will see something like direct mail and they'll say, okay, I got $1,000. I'm going to do direct mail. But they don't realize that it takes, on average, about $2,000 to get a deal from direct mail. What happens is they spend the whole $1,000, then they don't get results, and now they have to start over again, but they're starting from zero. So because their strategy selection was not appropriate, because they hadn't hit that threshold, they weren't at that starting point, that's why it didn't work for them. And that's why every time you get to the end of your budget, you got to press the reset button and then you have to start over from zero. And I did that for God knows how long when I started. And a lot of students that come to me, that's where they're starting, because they're not doing the research beforehand to understand where they need to be. And then you also have to realize things like Facebook ads, for example, they have a warming up period. So it's not going to necessarily work immediately. And again, you can get lucky, right? I've done direct mail campaigns and spent $200 and gotten a deal. But if we're playing off of these averages, then you really want to understand what it takes to do a deal. And that's the lane you want to pick and stick there. And after you do your cold calling or your on-market stuff or whatever it is, then you say, okay, well, now I have some money to play with. I'm going to plug into some automations. I'm going to plug into some direct mail. I want to plug into some Facebook ads. And again, I'll show you how to do that relatively very easily, right? And I want to invest in this, but you have to invest intelligently based on where you are. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys, okay? Where are we at? Boom, okay. So that's our KPI scorecard and cheat sheet / tracking average is going to help you pick the right thing, because you want to be laser focused on one thing when you're first getting started. And we'll deep dive into the numbers a little bit more and the tracking a little bit more as we go along in this 4-part training, all right? So that allows you to calculate when you're going to do a deal, tracking, all that stuff, super important. Most people, quite frankly, they just don't do it, and it's really not that difficult. I always want to encourage you to spend money. I know the reason I got into this business, because it was like, you could do deals without spending money. And that's probably why most people got attracted to the business. And it's not that you have to spend money to do deals, right? But you can do a deal with no money, but you don't want to run a business with no money. That's the big difference. And I remember, I probably tell this story often, but I at one time had made probably, I don't know, my second deal or something, and I paid off some bills, and I had like $8,000 in my bank account. My mentor was like, yo, go spend it all. And I was like, hell no, man. Like I spent so much sweat equity trying to get this one deal. I'm not spending my money. I did a deal without any money. I'm going to do the next one. I didn't realize he was telling me, he's like, man, I'm not just saying spend it. I'm saying spend it intelligently, right? And if you know those kind of numbers, then you create this machine where you put $1 in and $5 come out. You put $1 in, $10 come out. If I gave you that machine, how much money would you put into it? Everything. But you have to ensure that your expenditure never outpaces your profit. And understanding those numbers is what's going to help you to do that. You know when your return is coming back. So money buys automation, efficiency, predictability, speed, and ultimately your time back. But you have to spend intelligently. We're all over the place. You can do a deal with no money, but you don't want to run your business that way. You have to know your metrics, okay? So recap, this is day one. That's it. We're done. I told you it's going to be efficient. You want to work the best, most lucrative markets. You got to make sure you do your research on that. It shouldn't take you more than a day. Same amount of money, same effort, same resources, exponentially more profit. Guaranteed cash buyers for your deals, no shortage of inventory. Then you want to get laser focused on one strategy, perform your budget audit, so know where you are right now financially, what you can spend on your business. And if it's zero, it's zero. But understand where you are, because the more you spend, the faster it can go. Know your metrics, your KPI targets, and then choose your best strategy. Again, that strategy is going to be what's unique to you. What works for me may not work for you. What's working for, a guy spending $100,000 in marketing per month, and he's telling you what to do, he's not wrong. But if he's telling you, yeah, just Facebook ads, and he's spending $50K a month, you're not there right now, right? And then you reverse engineer, right? So another example I like to give, hey, if I tell you, man, it's going to 1,000 cold calls, let's say cold calling, right? To do a deal, it's like, man, Mike, that's crazy. That takes so much. It's like, yeah, but okay, I want to do a deal in 30 days. Well, 30 divided by 1,000, make 33 calls a day. Who can't do that? Okay. And again, once we start diving into automation, AI, I'm going to show you how to automate a lot of those things and make it happen a lot faster. So it's going to be pretty cool. Okay. Yeah, that was all out of order, but let the data guide you. Cool. All right, so tomorrow, next video, what to expect. We're going to look some more at our KPIs. It's going to be a little bit extended. The importance of tracking, we'll talk about that. But tomorrow is going to be primarily focused on marketing. You are not so much a real estate investor as you are a marketer. So we're going to be talking about marketing, and I'm going to give you the all the bullet points, the guidelines, show you some examples. And then we'll get into, in the next video, we'll talk about automating that marketing. But again, we started with the foundation, which for me is the stuff I love to teach the least, because it's kind of boring, but you have to have that, right? To make sure you're in the right place. Then your marketing, your messaging, all that stuff's got to be on point. Because if you automate dog shit marketing, it doesn't work. So that has to be on point. Then we get to the fun stuff, the good stuff. And now I'll talk to you guys about my favorite list for finding motivated sellers. Ooh, moving along, get sweaty. Okay, so that's it for tonight's training. Let's see how I ended. We've been here more than a half hour, but I tried. And again, the foundation usually takes a little bit longer. So hopefully you guys got some value that made some sense to you. These are exercises you could do tonight. I encourage you to do them tonight before you show up for tomorrow. The URL's probably going to be different tomorrow. So if you want to get an email for the invite for tomorrow, I'm playing around. I have a webinar room streaming, and I have YouTube. I'm not sure necessarily where I'm going to stream. So make sure you go to wholesalingmike.com/challenge. I'll put it in the chat here. This is for my YouTube people, because I don't know if you just saw this and came in here, but if you want to make sure you get the invite for our next few days, that's the site. So before we jump off, you guys will get, what do you call it? An invite. You'll get the link, and it'll be same time tomorrow, 6 o'clock. If you guys have questions, you can always email me, but I was going to say drop them in the chat. Drop them in the chat if you have them now. And you can drop it, I don't know, you can hit me on Instagram. How about that? That's a good way to put it, okay? But yeah, thanks for joining tonight, guys. Tomorrow I'll try to keep us a little bit more on time, to limit it down to maybe 30 minutes or so. But we're going to keep building and building this machine up, and I encourage you to stick with me for 4 days. Remember, you'll get the KPI tool sheet, all that good stuff. We'll do a little bit more training with that tomorrow. I got some other bonuses and cool stuff for you guys. Just seeing if I'm missing anything here. 6 o'clock tomorrow, same time, same place. Thanks for joining. I'll do a last call for any questions. I know there's a little bit of a delay on the training here, so I'm gonna give it like a minute, and then if not, I will see you guys tomorrow. I hope you guys got some good training, even with the boring stuff. Okay, so on that note, I have questions for today. So thanks for joining, guys. Really looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Remember, we're going to be talking about marketing. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we got 3 more days to go. Okay, so thanks for joining. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Peace.